The clink of crystal and the low hum of polite conversation filled the grand ballroom, but all Elara could hear was the frantic beating of her own heart. Across the room, a woman with sharp eyes and a sharper smile was cutting through the crowd, her gaze locked on Kairos. "Darling," the woman purred, her voice like honeyed poison. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your date?" Ilara's blood ran cold. This was Isabel, Kairos's ex-fiancée, and the one person who could see right through their carefully constructed lie. Kairos Thorne, the billionaire tech mogul who never showed a crack in his armor, had hired his own maid to be his fake fiancée for this gala, and they were about to be exposed. Just hours earlier, the scene in Kairos's penthouse was one of sterile silence. Elara Vance moved through the minimalist space, a ghost in the machine of his life. She adjusted a perfectly straight frame, her fingers brushing against the cold, polished concrete wall. This wasn't a home, it was a fortress, and Kairos was its solitary, brooding king. He was perched at his glass desk, a tangle of code reflected in his glasses, oblivious to the world outside his screens. The call came through on the large monitor. Mr. Tanaka, a revered Japanese investor, appeared, his demeanor calm and respectful. "Thorne-san," he greeted, "my wife and I are greatly looking forward to the gala tonight. She is particularly eager to meet the woman who has captured your focus. She believes a harmonious personal life is the foundation of a visionary business." Kairos's smile was tight. "As do I, Mr. Tanaka. We will see you there." The screen went dark, and Kairos's composed facade shattered. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare sign of distress. He had no harmonious personal life. He had a multi-billion-dollar company and a housekeeper. He found Elara in the kitchen, meticulously organizing the pantry. "Elara, I have a business proposition." She turned, wiping her hands on her apron. "Sir?" He struggled to find the words, his usual arrogance gone. "I have a business deal. It's contingent on certain perceptions, specifically that I am in a stable, committed relationship." Elara blinked, not understanding. "I need you to attend the gala with me tonight as my fiancé. I will pay." The silence that followed was deafening. Elara let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "You want to pay your maid to be your fake fiancé?" She shook her head, turning back to the shelves. "That's the most absurd thing I've ever heard." "This isn't a joke," Kairos said, his voice low and intense. "Name your price. Triple your salary for the next year." She continued her work, refusing to look at him. "It's not about the money, Mr. Thorne. It's about dignity." "Then name something that isn't money," he challenged, stepping closer. "I know about your art, Elara. The illustrations on your tablet, they're exceptional." That stopped her. She finally turned, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and violation. "You went through my things?" "I noticed things," he said quietly. "I'll fund your first solo exhibition. A full gallery, marketing, everything. A year's salary in your dream. That's the offer." The air left her lungs. Her dream, the thing she worked on in the dead of night, was being held out like a carrot. It was offensive, it was outrageous, and it was the only chance she might ever get. She looked at him, at the desperate hope in his eyes that he tried to mask with authority, and something in her softened. "One night," she whispered. "One night, and you will never ask this of me again." He nodded, a wave of relief washing over his features. One night. The preparation was a whirlwind. A personal stylist arrived, transforming Elara from the invisible help into a visible masterpiece. The simple black dress she chose was elegant, but the unique artistic drape of the fabric made it hers. When she finally emerged from the dressing room, Kairos stared. The woman before him was a stranger, and yet somehow more familiar than ever. "You look," he began, but words failed him. "Presentable?" she finished for him, a sharp edge in her voice that hadn't been there before. "No," he said, his gaze intense. "You look like you belong here." It was the wrong thing to say. The chasm between their worlds had never felt wider. The car ride to the gala was silent, a rolling tomb of unspoken tensions and rehearsed lies. And now, standing under the glittering lights, facing the woman from Kairos's past, all those rehearsals felt flimsy and naive. Isabel's eyes raked over Elara, a predator sizing up its prey. So tell me, my dear, Isabel said, her smile dripping with faux sweetness. How did someone like you ever catch the elusive Kairos Thorne? What will Elara say? How can they possibly survive this? The tension is just beginning. If your heart is pounding, remember to subscribe and hit that like button, because this story is about to take a wild turn. The ballroom seemed to hold its breath. Isabel's question hung in the air, a trap disguised as curiosity. Elara felt every pair of eyes at their little group turn towards her. She could feel Kairos tense beside her, a statue of frozen panic. This was the moment their entire charade crumbled. Then something snapped inside her. The indignity of the proposal, the condescension in Isabel's voice, the sheer absurdity of it all forged a steel core of defiance. She wasn't just a maid playing dress-up. She was Elara Vance, an artist, and she was damn good at observing people. She let out a soft, melodic laugh, the sound so genuine it surprised even herself. She leaned slightly into Kairos, her arm linking with his, in a gesture that felt terrifyingly natural. "Isn't it funny how life works?" she began, her voice warm and confident, her gaze never leaving Isabel's. "You spend all your time looking for something glittering and impressive on the surface, and you completely miss the real treasure hidden in plain sight." She turned her head, looking up at Kairos with a fondness that made his breath catch. "We met because I was restoring a fragile first edition book he'd acquired. He valued my hands, my patience, my eye for detail, long before anything else. It was a brilliant lie woven from threads of truth. It spoke to her artistry and his intellect." Kairos, jolted back to life, played his part. He covered her hand on his arm with his own, his thumb brushing her skin in a gesture that sent an electric shock through both of them. "I've never been interested in surface-level attractions, Isabel," he said, his voice regaining its usual command. "Elara sees the world and me with a clarity others lack." Isabel's smile tightened, but the curiosity in Mr. Tanaka's eyes was now genuine interest. "A restorer of books, how fascinating," Mrs. Tanaka said, speaking for the first time. "There is a deep beauty in preserving the old." "The soul of the story is in its physical form," Elara replied, easily engaging in her. "It's not so different from your husband's work in preserving cultural integrity while embracing new technology." The connection was made. The conversation shifted, flowing away from Isabel and towards a deeper, more meaningful discussion about art and innovation. Isabel, outmaneuvered, eventually excused herself with a clipped farewell. As she retreated, Kairos leaned down, his lips close to Elara's ear. His breath was warm, and his voice was a low, stunned whisper. "You are remarkable." This time the words held no calculation, only awe. The facade had, for a fleeting moment, become real. For the next hour, they were a perfect team. Elara charmed, Kairos elaborated. He found himself seeing his own work through her eyes, describing it with a passion he usually reserved for boardrooms. He wasn't just selling a product. He was sharing a vision. And she was his muse. During a slow song, he led her to the dance floor. His hand was firm on her lower back, her hands small and cool in his. They moved together, a world away from the watching crowd. "I'm sorry," he murmured, his voice barely audible over the music. "For everything, for the proposition, for putting you in that position with Isabel." "Don't be," she said, looking up at him. The anger was gone, replaced by a bewildering swirl of emotions. "You were right. It was a business proposition, and I performed." But her words rang hollow. The way his thumb was gently stroking her back wasn't part of the performance. "Was it?" he asked, his gaze searching hers. "When you looked at me like that, was that all performance?" Elara's heart hammered against her ribs. The music swelled, and for a dangerous, delicious second, she thought he might kiss her right there. The world narrowed to the space between them, charged with the truth they had both been pretending wasn't there. The song ended, breaking the spell. They pulled apart, the air crackling with unspoken admission. The gala was a success, but the real danger was just beginning, the danger of their own hearts. Can you feel the chemistry? This fake relationship is getting dangerously real. Don't go anywhere. Rate Elara's performance at the gala from the scale of 0 to 10. The car ride home was a silent, charged space. The city lights streaked past the tinted windows, painting fleeting patterns across Kairos's profile. Elara sat as far from him as the plush leather seat would allow, her body thrumming with the residual energy of the night. Every nerve ending was aware of him, of the ghost of his hand on her back, the whisper of his breath against her ear. He had seen a version of her she kept hidden, and she had seen a vulnerability in him she never knew existed. They entered the penthouse, the stark silence a jarring contrast to the gala's buzz. The grand lie was over, but the tension remained, thicker and more intimate than before. I'll just go change, Elara said, her voice sounding too loud in the quiet. She needed to retreat, to shed the designer gown and become Elara the maid again. She needed the safety of her uniform. Kairos simply nodded, striding over to his bar and pouring a glass of whiskey, his movements stiff. As Elara disappeared down the hall to her room, his eyes fell on her small, personal workspace in the corner. A concession he'd made, allowing her a sliver of personal territory in his impersonal domain. Her digital tablet was there, its screen dark. Driven by a compulsion he couldn't name, he walked over and tapped the screen. It lit up, and he froze. There, in stunning, meticulous detail, was a portrait of himself. But it wasn't the Kairos Thorne the world saw. This was the man behind the fortress walls. He was looking out the penthouse window, his shoulders slumped not with defeat, but with a profound, lonely weariness. The artist had captured the slight furrow in his brow, the intelligence in his eyes, but also a deep, hidden sadness. She hadn't drawn a billionaire. She had drawn a man, and she had seen him, truly seen him in a way no one ever had. He was still standing there, gripped by the image, when Elara returned. She had changed back into her simple clothes, her face clean of makeup. She saw him at her desk, saw the illuminated tablet, and her world stopped. "You went through my things again," she whispered, the betrayal slicing through her, sharp and clean. All the camaraderie, the fleeting connection from the gala evaporated. He turned, his eyes wide, full of an emotion she couldn't place. "You see me," he said, his voice raw, stripped bare. It wasn't an accusation, it was a revelation. Tears welled in Elara's eyes, hot and angry. The dam broke. "Of course I see you," she cried out, her composure shattering. "I see you work until you're ready to collapse. I see you forget to eat. I see the way you look at this empty, beautiful prison you've built for yourself. I've seen you for months, Kairos. That's the problem." She hugged her arms around herself, shaking. This was supposed to be a transaction. My dignity for my dream. But it was never just a job for me. I fell for you weeks ago, watching you be so brilliant and so utterly lost. And tonight just made it 1,000 times worse. She was sobbing now, the confession tearing out of her. "So, yes, I see you, and it's going to cost me everything. My chot, my home, my stupid heart. Just give me the money for the exhibition, and I'll be gone by morning." She turned to flee, to pack her bags and her broken dreams. "Elara, wait." His voice was soft, but it stopped her in her tracks. She turned back. He had crossed the room and was standing right in front of her. The raw intensity on his face was terrifying. "Don't," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "Don't try to make this better. You got what you wanted. The deal is secure." "I was blind," he breathed, reaching out and gently cupping her face, his thumb wiping away a tear. The contact was electric. "I was so obsessed with building walls to protect myself from being hurt again that I built them against the one person who could actually find me behind them." He looked directly into her eyes, his own glistening. "I hired the woman in front of me to play a part when the only person I've ever wanted by my side was you all along." And then he kissed her. It wasn't a practiced gesture for a watching crowd. It was desperate and real and full of a longing that had been simmering for months. It was a confession, an apology, and a promise all at once. And as Elara kissed him back, her arms wrapping around his neck, the last of her resistance melted away. The fake engagement was over. Something real, something terrifying and beautiful had just begun. Wow, the truth is out. This is the moment we've been waiting for. If you're cheering for them, smash that like button and let me know in the comments. The morning after the gala, the penthouse felt different. The light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows seemed warmer, the sterile air now carrying the faint, sweet scent of Elara's shampoo. Kairos woke not to the cold silence of his routine, but to the soft sound of Elara breathing beside him. For the first time in a decade, he didn't wake up alone. The weeks that followed were a transformation. The fortress of solitude became a home. Elara's art, once confined to a hidden tablet, began to appear on the walls, a splash of vibrant color against the gray minimalist canvas. Laughter echoed in the spaces that had known only silence. Kairos still worked with ferocious intensity, but now he had a reason to leave his desk. He'd find Elara painting by the window, and he'd pull her into his arms, resting his chin on her head, both of them watching the city below. Professionally, everything fell into place. Mr. Tanaka, convinced he was investing in a man with both professional vision and personal harmony, signed the largest partnership in Nexus Dynamics' history. At the signing ceremony, he took Kairos aside. Thorne-san, your fiancée. She has a rare spirit. You are a fortunate man. Kairos looked over at Elara, who was speaking animatedly with Mrs. Tanaka, and his smile was genuine. I know, Tanaka-san. I am only just beginning to understand how much. Months later, the climax of their new life arrived. The opening of Elara's solo exhibition, Unseen. The gallery was packed. Kairos stood at the back, his chest swelling with a pride he'd never felt for any business acquisition. On the walls were her stunning illustrations, but the centerpiece was the one that had started it all. The portrait of him, the lonely man in the window, now titled The Keeper of the Fortress. It wasn't for sale. As the crowd thinned, he found her, her eyes shining with happy tears. You did it, he whispered, pulling her close. They see you. Thanks to you, she said, leaning into his embrace. Don't, he chided gently. Thanks to your talent. I just provided the gallery. You filled it with your soul. He looked around at the vibrant, warm space, so full of life, so unlike the prison he'd built for himself. You know, he said, a playful glint in his eye, hiring you was the best business decision I ever made. Elara looked up at him, her smile radiant and full of love. She reached up and touched his face. Kairos, she said softly, firing me was even better. They both laughed, the sound a testament to their incredible journey. Their story wasn't a Cinderella fantasy. It was a collision of two worlds that created something entirely new and strong. He had given her a platform, but she had given him a home. He had seen her talent, and she had seen his heart. Their family grew a year later with the arrival of their daughter Lily, whose laughter became the penthouse's most beautiful music. Kairos, once singularly focused on his legacy of code and innovation, now found his greatest joy in bedtime stories and tiny, sticky handprints on his glass desk. Axiom Innovations continued to thrive, but its CEO was no longer a mystery. He was a man, deeply and publicly in love with his wife, a celebrated artist, and a devoted father. Their love story, which began with a lie under the glittering lights of a gala, became a timeless testament to a simple, powerful truth that the most valuable things in life are often hidden in plain sight, waiting only to be truly seen. This is the power of a genuine connection. If this story captured your heart, if it made you believe in unexpected love, then do us a huge favor. Subscribe to the channel for more captivating stories like this. Like this video to let us know you loved it. And most importantly, comment below with the word transformation if you believe in second chances and love that changes everything. Thank you for watching.